Welcome to Messy Disciples. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Pastor Bob. This is Gio. And we're excited for you to be a part of the conversation. And that's what these are. These are just conversations that started because Zoom became a way of life. And we thought what we were talking about might be something that could help people along the way.
So, Pastor Bob, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Gio.
Thank you so much. It's been a heck of an ending to the year, as I'm sure not only you but everybody else that is that's out there can relate to. And we haven't had a fresh post or a new recording in a couple of months, and so thank you to those who have reached out to us and who've maybe seen us at church, who've really encouraged us to keep going, and that we're touching people's lives is very, very cool. So we're very thankful for that. So Pastor Bob and I kind of got talking about this, and we got some really cool stuff to talk about today, some great topics. But one of the things that really has been weighing heavy on my mind, only because so many people that I interact with on a regular basis have really been hit hard by COVID in some way or another. And what I'm learning is that so many people have lost people, members of their family, loved ones, friends. I think at this point, almost everybody knows somebody who's either had it or who's been really sick, or in a lot of cases has died as a result of this. And it's a very harrowing experience because it comes on fast sometimes, and it attacks people that are unsuspicious of it. And, within a very short period of time, all of a sudden, somebody that was in your life is not there. Now, Pastor Bob, this came to me as a topic because I really thought about one of the other videos that we've done. It was one of our first videos where you were telling me the story about the woman that used to talk to her husband in the next room. And it was such a good video. And I recommend that anybody that hasn't seen it, that's interested in this topic, or somebody who's lost a loved one, go back and listen to Pastor Bob tell that story in one of our videos, because it is very good. But I think that in this time, having us gone through now, almost a full year of this, Pastor Bob, what can you tell us? What can you guide us on? Where can you take us here for anybody who has either gone through it themselves, knows somebody that has, or God forbid, has lost somebody that they love or that matters to them?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really keen is whether or not you know somebody who's had it, or whether or not you've lost somebody because of it, or whether or not you've been personally affected by all. I think understanding our emotions and understanding the grief cycle is going to become a major part of how we all together go through and go forward after we figure out what it means to come back from COVID. And so, I've had relatives who have had it. I've known people who have passed away from it. I've known people who've had loved ones who've passed away from it. And I know people who it hasn't affected them at all. But I think that we all need to find a way to understand our emotions and our spiritual and emotional health as we move forward. I'd like to share 10 different ideas if you're okay with that.
And I think that's an awesome way to start.
Um, the first is we need to learn how to be gracious to ourselves and others. We need to learn to be gracious to ourselves and others. Really, this is an idea from Ephesians chapter 4, 25 to 32. I mean, we're all going through a lot. We've all got a lot happening, and we just need to remember to apply the same grace to ourselves that we receive from God in Christ, and to be gracious in applying that to other people. We got to give people a break. You got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself permission um, to love one another again. I think that's the first most important thing, is just learning to be kind again. The Greek word for kindness is Christos, which St. Paul uses in Galatians 5 and the fruits of the Spirit to play on Jesus's name, which is Christos, Christ. And so he plays on that word. If you want to see Christ, be kind. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing is starting and ending each day refueling your soul. This is really important. Isaiah 58:11 talks about this. James 1:21 talks about this. Even the book of Psalms, Psalm 92 verse 2 talks about this. You need to make sure that you're doing soul maintenance. We're really good at body maintenance, especially when it comes to New Year's resolutions, and especially when it comes to maybe the opposite of a New Year's resolution. A quart of ice cream is a good thing. Sometimes we're really good at that, but I just want to remind you to take care of your soul too.
How do
And
we
to
do that? Can you give a couple? I know I don't want to stop you in the middle of your number 2 to 3, but can you give just a couple of things? Because I know later we're going to talk about your New Year's resolutions, and you just mentioned it. So how do you fuel your soul? How do you fill your soul? You said soul maintenance.
Yeah, you've got to be in the Word, whether you understand what's going on or not. You got to find a way to be in the Word. And there's so many different. The world is so saturated with ways to be in the Word. You can get an app on your phone. You can get a program. You can get it where it reads it to you. You can read it in a book. But the way to refuel your soul is to be in the Word. Pick a way and do it, even if it's a little. Be gracious to yourself as you're doing it. Don't let it become a thing that breaks you down, right? Even a little bit is better than nothing at all right?
So, I mean, I know there's some older people that I know that would like to pick up a Bible and just start reading it, and they read it, whenever they can during the day. And I use the app.
Yeah,
There's a couple of really good ones out there. I like the Bible app. You can pick things on them. There's so many. You find one that you like. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
that is. And I'm not asking you to read the whole Bible all the way through unless you want to do that. It could be something as simple as, I'm going to choose to spend 30 days in the Gospel of Luke, and I'm just gonna chunk it out, and it's just the Gospel of Luke. Or I'm gonna find a way to read a proverb a day. There's 31 proverbs, so just chunk it out. Just make it manageable. That's the way that you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time. And so I think the same applies to the Word. Just find the plan that works best for you, and don't let it beat you up. Now, it's refueling your soul, so it's going to do a work on you, and sometimes that work will feel a little like push-ups. But I think that you only regret when you're about to do push-ups. I don't know many people who regret having had done push-ups. Does that make
Yeah, your only regret is that you didn't do them yesterday. Okay, cool. So number 2. How about number 3?
Well, number 3 is related. Set up and stick to a simple routine. This is really important. All right. So our life has been really complicated. So one way to counteract this is to set up a simple routine. Routine creates resilience. Predictability creates stability. Structure creates steadiness. Um, Dosing and spacing to get through a crisis is really important. You've got to dose yourself multiple times throughout the day with good stuff, but you've got to space it out too. You can't just kind of say, well, I'm going to save it all up when I get home, because you might be a wreck, you or I'll do it at the end of the week. Well, you might not, be ready by the end of the week. So you've got to intentionally stick to and set up a simple plan. What would I compare that to? It's like medicine. Medicine. Uh, excuse me.
Bless
Pardon.
you.
Thank you.
How often do you
Medicine.
get to say that to your pastor?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Always the other way around.
Medicine, you've got to set up your doses and space out your doses. I mean, you can't just kind of take a whole bunch and hope it works. I mean, that's how trouble starts. I think that's what I mean by dose and spacing, is the simple routine becomes helpful that way. I Number 4
Well, hold
is
on. Before you go to number 4, just on number 3 real quick, you said something there at the end that I think a lot of people can relate with, and I can relate with it, is, the spacing, the portion and the spacing part of it is something that I think is very hard for human nature to do, because, and I'll give an example, I'll give a relevant example. Everybody's making New Year's resolutions, right? And it's always to, hey, I'm starting fresh. I got a whole new thing. I'm just, I'm throwing out all the chocolate in the house. Right? I'm taking all the chips. It's extremes, right? It's a lot. And I'm all in. I'm all in. And that lasts about what? If you're lucky, 4 or 5 days. because there wasn't enough portioning or enough dosing. And so people either A, get overwhelmed when they try to do too much at one time, or B, they forget what they're doing or forget why they started or something like that. And so I really think that that's a key, something that I definitely have said I've had trouble with myself.
One of the things that is hard for our culture now is we are a binge or purge culture,
I like that.
right?
The purge. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we learned this from Metallica, right? And so we either binge because it's a good thing, we can't get enough of a good thing, just keep putting it in, I don't care. Or we're a purge culture, which is I regret, I'm getting rid of all of it. And I think that wisdom says that we need to binge and purge. That's true, the big things. But in the normal things and the small things, we need to learn how to make a manageable lifestyle. And the way that this works is this um, pick a project, something that can be done in small chunks.
Is this number
And
4? Pick a project.
no, no, no. This is, I'm going
Okay.
off of what
Okay.
you're saying. Yeah, about
Okay.
New Year's resolutions.
Sorry.
Pick
Sorry.
a project and say, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of that a day, and I'm going to set a goal, a begin date, an end date. I'm going to check up in between there. So typical with New Year's resolutions, people say, I'm going to lose 80 pounds. Well, yes, you can lose 80 pounds. But if you start off with that goal, it's too big and you're binging and
Yeah.
you're purging
Yep.
and it never comes to fruition. So instead say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in a month. Set that goal. And once you hit that, ask yourself, how do I feel at the end of that? You may lose 10 pounds in like 2 days. Like you go to a spa and you sweat it all out. And you might be like, cool, mission accomplished. Yeah. But keep the 10-pound goal within the time frame that you set and see if you can maintain it. You're learning to set reasonable boundaries. After you accomplish a small goal, then make a medium-sized goal. After you hit the medium-sized goal, make the large-sized goal. This is the same thing that we do with budgeting. I want to get a motorcycle. Well, unless you got $35,000 just hanging around that you know your spouse or nobody has claim to, then go for it. But most of us, it's like I'm gonna save this amount of money, or I'm gonna budget for it. I'm gonna put down a down payment and make payments, and the payments help you to accomplish your goal. Smaller, sizable kind of things that help you to accomplish a big
Small,
goal.
realistic goals. We use this in business too. I mean, it's always better to, take something undertaking by taking some small, realistic, and doable
Yep.
bites. Like I really like what you said. How do you eat an elephant? One bite
Yeah.
at a time.
I read the Bible
Right
every
on.
year, all the way through. Now that sounds nuts, right? And it's like, ooh, that's very impressive. How do I do it? 15 minutes every evening. That's it. And I've read the Bible in a ton of different versions, including last year. I read the Bible all the way through in Hebrew and Greek.
Now, do you read it in order?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now you're still in Genesis this year?
So this year, right now, I'm in a new version of the Bible because I finished that one last year. And so this one, I'm in the Bibliotheca project. And you'll see that I'm almost done with this volume.
It's 15 minutes a night. I love it.
15 minutes a night. And so, I mean, who can say at the end of their life that they've read the Bible in every major version, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Why? Because I made it a manageable goal and I don't beat myself up about it.
But you're consistent on it, and I think that's the point is, find something that you can do, something small that you can commit to. And if it's 15 minutes a night because everybody's got so much stuff going on, then it's 15 minutes a night. And something, I think that is remarkable when I talk to you so often, Pastor Bob, because it's remarkable how you will hit things on the head without really knowing that they're going on in my life. And so it's very cool because it's funny. Not only have I taken this exact thing that you're saying on this year as something that I felt was incredibly important for me. Even with doing this channel, for example, it's an overwhelming amount of work to put into something, even, your time to sit here and talk and to do these. And it only gets done if we commit, for me, which is a small amount of time each week, to doing it. And
Yeah.
that's how you take something on that is, A, that you want to put new into your life, right? And something B, that is such a powerful amount of information, because getting into the word, like what you're
Yes.
saying, is really what we need to be doing. You have to make a conscious effort, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
The other book that I'm writing right now about how I lost the weight, because everybody's asking me how I lost 40 pounds. How did I do it? How did I do? So I'm writing it, and the one thing that I'm seeing as a consistent theme that my trainer and I are doing together to write it is the exact same thing you just said.
Yep.
And it's funny, and like I said, you don't even know how you hit your things on the head with me, but you even used weight as an example. You don't say you're going to lose 80 pounds, you're going to lose 10 this month. That's exactly what we're saying in all things. So I really think that is a remarkably apropos way for people maybe to jump in and say, I am going to make an effort to get in the word this year. And I'm
Yeah.
going to either, like what you said, you gave a lot of different options, either download the app and or tell your Amazon Alexa that you need, they have apps that give you one every morning upon waking up and upon sleep. And I really think that that's a powerful message, Pastor Bob.
I appreciate that. So if you're stuck in grief, if you're stuck in a grieving cycle, coming up with that simple and manageable plan, saying, you know what, I'm not going to get rid of all of my grief today, but for these 15 minutes, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to space that out. And I'm going to do another thing at this time because I believe that it's possible to manage this grief. And I'm gonna use God's word to help me to get there to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to quote a great man, George Bennis, and in his quote, he said, you will always continue to get what you're getting if you continue to do what you're doing.
That's
So
right.
if you want to affect any kind of realistic change in your life, it's you have to act and change.
Yep.
And so, change is a difficult thing for people to swallow. And that's why we do things like, oh, I'm going to have a resolution because now, there's a day on the calendar that makes a difference. It's a magical day. It's the day that, after this day, anything can happen, right? That's what we tell ourselves. So I'm going to make a resolution, but it doesn't start today. Starts 2 weeks from now, maybe because I thought of it in the middle of December or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever. And that's my beginning point. But it doesn't work like that. It works the moment that you say you want the change. And
Yeah.
then from that point forward, it really is just a matter of trying to take out those little chunks and say,
Yeah.
I'm going to commit 15 minutes tonight to reading the Bible. And I might get inspired to start at Luke 2 because that's maybe something that piqued my interest from Pastor Bob's sermon 2 Saturdays ago, which was fantastic. You took Luke 2 and you compared it to Luke 20, and it was almost like a time jump, because so much had changed in such a small period of time between these 18 books. I mean, 18 chapters in the book of Luke. And it was so maybe you start there, like you said, maybe you just start there and you say, I'm going to attack Luke.
Listen, I want to talk to you about change for a second. I think that what ends up happening with change cycles is that people short circuit themselves. They end up not changing because there are some really important steps to change. And typically, what happens is when we set the goal for tomorrow, we're not ready. It's got to be something that you can say, this is something I need to start right away. And so some kind of crisis occurs. So we're talking about grieving, or we're talking about New Year's resolutions. An event occurs, and you need to do 3 things on one side of the event that occurred, 3 things on the back side in order for change to be effected. The first 3 is asking this question: what is God trying to say to me? When something happens, when a big event happens, we're going to say, what is God trying to say to me? The second question is, and what am I going to do about it? So on the back end is, what am I going to do about it? All right. So something really big happens, a grief cycle or um, New Year's resolutions or something like that. We say, okay, well, what is God trying to tell me this last year that he wants to affect for this year? Or what's God trying to tell me in the midst of this COVID crisis? And the first 3 things on that side, when you're trying to figure out what God's trying to say, is you observe, you reflect, and you discuss. When you observe, you're saying, why is God trying to get my attention this way? All right. And it's usually a problem or something that just keeps coming up. Why is God trying to get my attention? You reflect on it, which means that you say, I've noticed that this has happened a lot. You start to keep an inventory of why this event keeps on happening. And oftentimes the answer is because it's a change that you need in your life and you're just not doing it. That's why it keeps happening. And then finally discuss admits that we're not lone rangers. You know what I mean? Although all of our favorite movies, Gladiator, Braveheart, Count of Monte Cristo, whatever, is like this rugged individual.
Wow,
right?
Count of Monte Cristo. Kudos. I'm sorry. Kudos.
Oh,
Excellent.
good.
Excellent.
So our favorite movies are these rugged individuals, right, who go out and on their own they do this thing. But the fact of the matter remains is that God has created us to be in community, and so you've got to share, you've got to discuss what God's talking to you with other people, with other Christians. Now, in between what God's trying to say and what I'm trying to do about it, in between those two, you've got to check God's word. So you've got to check the Bible. Because if you think God's trying to say something to you and it's not what God's trying to say to you, that's dangerous spiritually, right? Like if it's like, should I feed my kids anymore? Listen, you're going to find in the Bible where it says feed your kids, take care of your kids. So that can't be something that God's trying to, all right? Now moving to the second half, what am I going to do about it? Those three things are plan, account, and act. And so once you've thoroughly work through this part of the change cycle, then you say, okay, so what's my plan? Now, what most people do is they observe and they go straight to act. And that's why they fail, because they haven't done any of these other processes. And those processes are super important if you want real lasting change. So the first one is, what am I going to do about it? You got to come up with a plan, and it's got to be a simple and doable plan. You can't be binge encouraged, right? The second thing is account. Now, what account means is you've got to go out and tell anywhere between 15 and 30 people. And I'm not talking about a blast on InstaHoo. You've got to find 15 people that will see you every day, or 30 people that you run into a lot, which means your favorite store, you're going to tell the cash register that you always go to because you like them and they like you. And why would you go out and tell 15 to 30 people? Is it because you're trying to be like, hey, look at me, look at me? No, it's because it's accountability. Every time you see that person, they're going to ask you about that, which may mean that if you're not working the change plan, that you're going to shop at a different store, you're going to stop talking to people. And then finally, the last one is to actually act. If you follow these steps of observe, reflect, and discuss, checking it against God's word, and then coming up with a plan, accounting, and acting, then you can affect real and lasting change. You can hear what God is saying, and then you can do something about it. Don't skip any of those steps, because that's why we keep on ending up in the same place in our life again and again and again.
Yeah, if you don't change what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Yeah. Okay, number 4, you ready?
Number 4, I'm ready.
This one's kind of nuts. To specifically deal with like emotional and spiritual health grief, we've got to make sure that we remove negativity from in front of us. We've got to stop watching and attending to negative things as much. Because
what a powerful statement. Say it again for me. Say it again. I wholeheartedly agree on this.
Yeah, you've got to stop watching and attending to negative things.
What is that? What does that mean? What kinds of things are negative, Pastor Bob? What should we stop watching, and what was it, the other one? Stop watching and
attending to.
Attending to.
So if you are on a news feed or a social media feed, that triggers you. If you are invited to small coffee clutch style meetings where it's just, it's just 4 of us in the parking lot in between or after or before work, but all we do is it's just negativity. It's just toxic swamp, right? Remove yourself from that situation, because it is negatively affecting you, and it sabotages and shortcuts your ability to make it through these emotionally and spiritually challenging times. Matthew 6:22 to 23 is big on this. And I think also Proverbs 15:14 has some real wisdom there. Even Psalm 119, 37 is pretty good here. Just monitor your media intake and start to moderate it. Um, what we do as people is we flock. We're like sheep. We flock. And when we flock to things that we hear again and again and again and again, and it starts to lead us onto the path of being mutton. You know what I mean? And I don't think that
Mutton?
that's
You
good.
said mutton?
I said
Yeah,
mutton.
yeah,
Yeah,
that mutton.
yeah. It's edible, but it ain't enjoyable, right? The fifth thing I think is scheduling a daily connection with people that you love. Like intentionally scheduling that in, scheduling a daily connection with people that you love. With my family, we're going on more walks. And my kids look forward to it, not because the weather's always great or because we love exercise that much, but we love it because that's our time. That's our time to connect.
That is that is really profound. I know it sounds, and I'm not trying to be verbose by saying it, but it really is profound. And I think applies in so many of our lives, because as we get, older, we tend to occupy ourselves with things, and it can be anything. It can be, I mean, I know older people that don't get out anymore, that are consumed with negativity on television.
Yep.
That are consumed by, the popular opinion, and they allow themselves to, filter that negativity into their own being, and that's how it is. It is in even the flip side. I know younger people that are on social media all the time. Same thing happens. I know people my age in their 40s with kids that are so busy taking the kids, to this practice and that practice and church and this, and they don't even have time with their spouses anymore, or themselves. So scheduling the time, I think, is profound.
Yeah.
I am scheduling it in my calendar as we speak.
Yeah. No, I agree. 1 Corinthians 5:11, building others up in hope, is, and if you're one of those who shut in all the time, I would strongly encourage you to write somebody a letter without expectation of return. So don't write it saying, I'll write it and then they better write back. Otherwise, I'm going to be just write a letter and send it out in love. Shout out to one of our favorite YouTube friends, Jane. Jane is excellent at giving little notes of encouragement. And she doesn't do it with any expectation of return, but she schedules that daily connection. And it's a positive thing. I think it's really powerful. Call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while and
Yep.
just connect with them.
Yep. And schedule the time to do it. That's the thing. Hey, I'm going to take a half an hour on Tuesday morning at 9:00, because that's the time I have. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to reconnect with some family, maybe call some cousins, some uncles, some aunts, my grandmother, whoever. Your best friend, the guy that stood up in your wedding.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, very well said. The sixth thing is share your feelings instead of stuffing them.
Instead of what?
Stuffing them. So share your feelings instead of stuffing them. Like such a large portion of the Bible is the laments. And the laments are a portion of the Bible where the person speaking is just letting God have it. They're emptying all their emotional guts on the floor. And some of those laments can be shocking because we're like, they're allowed to say that? Well, I think the Bible is instructive this way. Well, you're allowed to let God have it because he can take it. And so sharing your feelings instead of stuffing them, first giving it to God, and then, find a safe person that you can talk to, and let them know how you're feeling. Make sure that as you're sharing your feelings with them, that you're letting them know kind of how far that goes, because you don't want to scare people, right? Because then all of a sudden, they're going to be doing an attention on you. Maybe you weren't at that stage. Maybe you were at that stage and you need that. But some
Either way, you got to
people,
let it out, though.
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Even if it's just kind of just talking. Galatians 6:2 is really good here about bearing one another's burdens, right? And then 2 Corinthians 1, probably 8 through 11, where Paul is just sharing personally how much he's struggling. And I think that that's really powerful. Number 7 is seek advice before making a major decision. Seek advice before making a major decision. So
I'm sorry.
if you're like, oh no, it's okay.
I don't know how to turn it off. Go ahead.
That's all right. um,
Seek advice. I'm sorry. Say that again. Number 7, seek advice.
before making a major decision.
To who?
Um, seek advice from somebody that you trust. So when people are under chronic stress, your brain drops to its lower levels, your limbic level and your neocortex level. When that happens, we start to make some pretty quick decisions that we very quickly are filled with regret with afterwards, like the new Ferrari, right? Um, so I got a government stimulus check and I went out and bought like a diamond encrusted goblet. I mean, it's you're just shaking your head afterwards, just wondering what's going on. Listen, when people are under stress, they make a lot of quick decisions. Make sure that you're talking with people before you're making those decisions. The Bible uses this for wisdom. Proverbs 11:14 is really big here, and also Proverbs 15:2. Um, when we're stressed, when we're fearful, when we're upset, when we're anxious, you're not going to be making best decisions. Um, and then number 8, space renewal breaks throughout the day. So it's not
Can you say
just
that again?
about space renewal breaks throughout the day.
What does that mean?
Instead of taking a long break, take several shorter breaks, 5 to 10 minute breaks. I knew this pastor once who every 7 days he took a day off, every 7 weeks he took a week off, every 7 months he took a month off, and get this, every 7 years he took a year off.
Wow.
Yeah, it changed his life. Now he was able to do that. You may not be able to do that, right? But this is a technique that's used sometimes to de-escalate anxious people. It's asking this question. We call it the nines. Is it going to matter in 9 seconds? Is it going to matter in 9 minutes? Is it going to matter in 9 hours? Is it going to matter in 9 days? Is it going to matter in 9 months? And that helps put your situation into perspective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay, are you ready for number 9?
I am.
Serve someone else who is suffering more than yourself. Serve someone else who is suffering more than yourself. Why are you doing that? Because we're made to care for one another. This is a whole part of how God has made us, but it gets you in on yourself and your problems, and it feel like you're doing some good. And so when it comes to resolutions, maybe make a resolution to help another person this year. Or when you're dealing with grief, like don't be alone. Go and find somebody else. And then finally, the last one, control the controllable and then trust God for the rest. This is like that serenity prayer. Control the controllable and then trust in God for the rest. But now
I
that's
think people,
very easy.
I think people have a hard time with that, and I think more people need to try to embrace that. I've heard that in other forms, in give it up to God, leave it to God, let God, But I think people have a difficult time. I know I do. Have a difficult time with anything that lies outside of what I believe I can control. And
And part of my problem is because I'm an anxious fixer.
yeah, anxious fixer is a really, really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
We think as humans that we are in control, but one of the things that I learned that was the most helpful to me, that is still something that I need to be reminded of on a regular basis, is that it's not our plan. It's not my plan. I didn't wake up this morning with the plan. The idea is to communicate on a regular basis with God and Jesus, or God through Jesus rather, and ask for guidance, because you don't really know the plan. We didn't wake up today knowing what's going to happen next
Yeah.
in our lives or in our days. Something good, something bad, who knows? And only he does. So asking for guidance is a step, I think, towards being able to let go and realize that you really only, I just had this conversation this morning with a friend, you really only can control you. You really can only control you and yourself and how you respond and react to things and how you decide to, make your decisions. And by doing that, you can affect other things around you, but that's the only way to make some change. And I think that that's scary for people to say that I can only control me. I can't control my kids. I can't control my parents. I can't control my friends. I can't control anything. I can't control what goes on in the news. I can't control what goes on in the world. I can only affect and change or have influence over me. And that's another thing I think you and I have said too in previous videos, but be the change that you want to see. Be that change that you want to see. And that is the only way that you can truly ensure that anything is going to get done, is by you doing it. I think if more of us took that approach and more of us took that choice to, that time to just simply say, be kind, I think
Yeah,
that solves a lot of stuff for humanity. And I think people are incapable of it because maybe they don't know. It
I
takes,
think you're right. And I
you.
think one of the things that we try to affect or change is even God. And when you realize that you can't control God, now immediately that can be a scary thing. But watch this. But he's good. But he's good. And so trust him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is all really good stuff, Pastor Bob. We've got a ton of notes here. I think it's a great place maybe for us to close for today because there's a lot there, everybody. I encourage anybody that watches this video that wants to know some more about these 10 things that Pastor Bob shared and the probably 20 or 25 other smaller sub things that we mentioned in between. We encourage you to please leave some comments in the video below. Feel free to connect directly with either of us through the page. We're very thankful and very happy that you're a part of this conversation. And, the only way to really have the conversation is to interact. So please interact with us. This is what we're doing it for. We're really thankful. Pastor Bob, why don't you sign us off and take us away? What have you got to say to conclude this?
I'm just really glad to be back, guys. I'm really glad that you're back with us. Click the subscribe button, hit the like, and hit the notification so you can see when new videos come up. And I look forward to the conversation, and I hope that this episode can help you in the ways of trying to understand how can I make it in my stages of grief, whether in life or just because of the things that are going on in life. And then also, how can I affect real and lasting change in my life, even if it's something like as simple as resolutions or as complicated as this thing keeps on happening. What is God trying to say to me? How am I going to respond? I thank Gio for his time. I love his backdrop. I think it's cool. It gives me hope that there's green stuff in the world. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today. It's been a great conversation. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so go ahead and click subscribe. And if you hit the notification bar, it'll let you know when new videos are coming out, which is really important because all of our videos are about new and current events that are happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me via email. It's great to have you a part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Bye.